Good afternoon. Today is Friday, August 16th. Journal 141, T+136. I know I must look like a giant grape in this purple shirt, but purple is one of my favorite colors, so we'll all have to just deal with that. Been a frustrating day, frustrating morning so far, up until just a little while ago. And I'll explain as we move through this. First, there was a call to try and discuss or make progress on the website for misfirebook.com. That's been interrupted by the fact that the domains haven't been released yet. So we really can't do anything with that until the domains are released and they migrate over to where they're supposed to. So, that in itself is frustrating. Supposed to hang out with a friend of mine later on in the morning, and that didn't work out, which is fine. I mean, it was he's working, I'm not, and that worked out okay. Only it was frustrating because I would really like to have seen him. We always have incredibly interesting conversations when we're together, and talk about ranges of things that are fascinating to both of us. Don't agree on everything all the time, but we tend to make it possible to disagree without becoming disagreeable. After that, there were a bunch of small kinds of things that I had to get done, emails that had to be written, and responses that really needed to go out. Got done with all of that, and I was left to my own devices to think about a lot of different things, which is usually the case after I get off the telephone with this friend of mine. And then ultimately, a newsletter that's created, I guess it's a newsletter of sorts, that's created by my editor, Fredrick Haugen, called 7 Good Things. And it's really, for the most part, exceptional in every respect. But today's had a quote from Bruce Lee in a prominent place on the 7 Good Things that came out. And it was somehow incredibly appropriate. I'm fascinated by the way the universe works sometimes, and the way things that are really random and should be tend to have great meaning because they occur at a certain point, a certain time in your life. And I've read a lot of Bruce Lee's stuff. I've probably read all of his stuff, frankly. I've been fascinated by how deeply embedded in philosophy he was. But the quote is, if you always put limits on everything you do, it will spread into your work and into your life. There are no limits. There are only plateaus, and you must not stay there. You must go beyond them. If you don't, the quote ends there. If you don't go beyond those plateaus, you're self-limiting. You've created a situation in which you will not grow. You will not go any farther. And it's by choice. There's another really excellent book that was written by a gentleman named George Leonard, who was also a very accomplished martial artist, called Mastery. And he addresses this issue of plateaus in mastery to a lot, extensively. And those are really important for all of us, I think. And I was thinking about those as I started to do the first third of the long set of Tai Chi, the Yang family style Tai Chi. And I did it 10 times. I did it 5 times with the audio instructions that my instructor created for that, for the entire long set. And then I did it 5 times without. Because repetition is critical. Repetition in anything is critical to build muscle memory, to grind those neural pathways into your brain so you don't lose them. For all of those reasons. And that repetition becomes routine. And routine, I think, becomes habits. Habits are really nothing more or less than patterns. and those patterns tend to form assumptions, and you and I could not function without assumptions of all kinds in all areas of our lives. Those assumptions are critical. We assume that the sun's going to rise in the east. We assume that the ground isn't going to move underneath us, although sometimes it does out here in Southern California. We make assumptions about all kinds of different things. And those assumptions are critical. They're basically the paradigms upon which our lives are really built. And that has a lot to do with perception. You know, a lot of my seminar work, especially my early seminar work, was focused on helping shop owners understand that perception is reality. And that feelings are facts. And when you're dealing with relationships, customer relationships in the automotive service industry, or any other small business, or large business for that matter, there is nothing that could be more true than that. Perception is reality, feelings are facts. And that ties back to this idea of assumptions and paradigms and patterns and habits and all of the above, because if you change perception, if you give somebody a different lens through which to look at life, you change everything about their experience from that moment forward. I sit here with 2 pairs of glasses, right? I have one for computer, and I have one for just normal everyday survival, so I don't bump into things like Mr. Magoo. How many people out there remember Mr. Magoo? Raise your hands. That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So perception is an important part of all of this, and it has to do with reality, and it has to do with paradigms. And when we are challenged, when something occurs that violates those perceptions and those assumptions, we feel terribly wronged in so many different ways. I still have, you're wondering how we're going to segue back into something that's meaningful, right? I think all of this is really meaningful, but in all honesty, I have not heard back from the Golden State Water Company. My perception is I'm not going to hear back from them. My assumption is they don't care. They have not demonstrated in any of the conversations that we've had so far that they do care. My being a good customer of the Golden State Water Company, since it took over the responsibility of delivering water to my home, is based on those assumptions. I assume the water is going to be there when I need it. They assume I'm going to pay them when they ask me. I assume they're going to read the meter correctly, and I assume that the charges are going to be honest and accurate. When the meter is obscured to the point it can't be read, and I'm still being charged more for water that I could not have used because I wasn't here, then that whole issue of trust is shattered and goes away. And that's how we get from Tai Chi to the Golden State Water Company. But realistically, those repetitions, those patterns, that muscle memory, all of those assumptions and neural pathways that occur are critically important to our survival and probably have been since the beginning of time. And it's important to recognize that when you're involved in interpersonal relationships. It's important to recognize that even more when you're in business, because people depend upon your ability to meet or exceed their wants, needs, and expectations. And that's something I'm sure that we're going to talk about at another time. In the meantime, stay well, take care, pay attention to those patterns, take a moment and look at your routines, see if you've reached a plateau, and make sure that you don't stay there. You deserve better, you deserve more. But it's up to you, in essence, to break out of that. Make sure that that groove that you've built for yourself doesn't become a rut. Okay? Till tomorrow, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.